Hi, everyone. Bruce O here. After receiving quite a few questions from my wheel alignment using the Hunter alignment machine video, I thought I would put together a couple of videos talking about basic alignment angles. The first one talks very basically about the three alignment angles and those effects from those angles and some factors around those angles. And part two looks at basic alignment settings and symptoms, where we actually look at some alignment screens and see what kind of numbers these vehicles have and what kind of symptoms we would expect from those numbers. The first angle we'll talk about here is the caster angle. Caster is an angle that's read from the side of the vehicle. And if you draw a line between the lower and upper pivot points of the spindle, then that establishes your caster angle. On a McPherson strut, that's going to be the lower ball joint through the top pivot point of the strut. And on a double wishbone, that's going to be through the lower and upper ball joints. So that angle as seen from the side, if it's straight up and down, that's a zero caster angle. If it's tilted forward, that's going to be slightly negative, or that's going to be a negative angle. If it's tilted back, that's going to be positive. Most cars have positive casters, so they track better. Other caster factors, generally speaking, caster does not wear tires. It's only involved when we turn, and we don't turn near as much as we go straight. It is a major factor, however, in pulling. Caster difference from side to side causes pulling, depending on how much that difference is. As a technician, when doing alignments, I say when it comes to caster, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you don't have any symptoms, the vehicle's not pulling, and it's tracking well, then I would stay away from adjusting caster. Casters causes the wheel to return to center. It causes it to track better. So the more positive it is, the more the wheel will return to center. If it's too far positive, it can cause the vehicle to be a little hard to steer. If it's too far negative, or if it's less positive than it should be, then it can cause the vehicle to wander. When it comes to caster, there's no rear caster settings unless you have rear wheel steering, and even then, caster on the rear doesn't really affect as far as symptoms are concerned. Again, normal caster settings are going to be normally tilted positive. Camber is our next angle. Now this angle is picked up off of the tire instead of the suspension. So if the tire is straight up and down as viewed from the driver's seat, then that's a zero camber angle. If the tire is tilted slightly out, or if it's tilted out, that's going to be positive. And if it's tilted in, that's going to be a negative camber angle. Most cars are straight up and down or slightly negative for better handling. Other camber factors, camber will cause tire wear. It'll be somewhat slow, not as near as drastic as the toe setting. Camber can cause a pull, not as drastic as caster. But if camber numbers are different from right to left, that can cause a pull. As far as camber on the rear, that really doesn't cause a pull. It can cause the tires to wear, but that will be pretty slow wear compared to camber being off on the front. The toe angle is the last angle we're going to consider when this is looking down on the tires from above. That's how you look at this angle. And if the tires are pointed straight ahead, that's a zero toe angle. If they're pointed slightly in, that's a positive toe angle. And if they're pointed out, that's a negative toe. As far as adjustments, rear-wheel drive cars generally have the toe slightly in, a quarter of an inch or half a degree. And that's because as the tires drive down the road, the drag will have a tendency to pull the tires back a little. And theoretically, now the tires are going straight. When it comes to front-wheel drive, we set the toe slightly out. The thinking is the front tires, as they pull down the road, will pull the tires in a little, and those tires would end up going straight. Other toe factors, Well, toe is a major factor in tire wear. If the toe's out bad enough, it can wear the tires very quickly. Toe will not cause a pull. If the toe setting is off from left to right, in other words, both tires are pointing to the left or both tires are pointing to the right, or one tire is pointed drastically in, the driver will steer those tires to where they're evenly directed, and that will cause the car to go straight, but now the steering wheel will be crooked. So toe is a cause of crooked steering wheel, but not the cause of pulling. Toe won't cause a shake. Toe can wear tires in such a way that they begin to shake, but generally speaking, if you have a perfect set of tires, changing the toe setting won't cause or cure a vibration. Toe may not cause any symptoms at all. If the toe is towed in or out bad enough, it can have a force on the tires that stops any other symptoms from walking through the steering wheel to the driver, but it can wear the tires out pretty suddenly. So toe normally doesn't cause pulling because of the way you can steer, and it normally doesn't cause any other symptoms going through to the driver besides a crooked steering wheel. Toe is measured in degrees or inches. Depending on the technician's comfort with using inches or degrees, they can set the machine to read either way. Generally speaking, if your toe is off a ½ inch or more, or a ½ inch, you're going to get moderate wear. A ½ inch is about 1 degree. If your toe is off 3/4 of a degree or more, that's about 1.75 degrees, 3/4 of an inch, then you're going to get pretty severe wear. You can look at these 4 acronyms when you're trying to remember all this positive and negative stuff. When it comes to the toe angle, the acronyms are to remember. The acronyms to remember are tip and time. TIP stands for toe in equals positive. TON stands for toe out equals negative. When it comes to camber and caster, fin and rope work well for both of those. Fin stands for front or in is negative. Rope stands for rear or out is positive. So when it comes to camber, in is negative, out is positive, the tire leaning in or out. When it comes to caster, the spindle leaning front or rear, front is negative, rear is positive. Alignments are normally adjusted in the order you see here. We adjust the rear before we adjust the front because the front picks up the toe reading from the rear when we align the front. So we actually align the front to the rear. When it comes to the order of adjustments, we go rear camber first, then rear toe. The thinking is there, we want to adjust the setting that affects tire wear the most. We want to adjust that last because we want that to be as perfect as possible. Same theory on the front. Camber, caster has the least wear factor, toe is the greatest wear factor when it comes to tires. So we would adjust caster, camber, and toe in that order. As far as symptoms, you can use these charts to sort of map out how the symptoms would be affected from the different settings. When it comes to tire wear, the toe setting being out would cause the most severe wear. When it comes to camber, it would be moderate tire wear, and caster really doesn't affect tire wear. And this is involving the front. When it comes to the rear, when it comes to the pulling, caster has the most effect on pulling, camber has a moderate effect on pulling, and toe really doesn't have any effect on pulling. Generally speaking, a toe setting off over 1/4 of an inch or ½ a degree out of spec is cause for concern. And generally speaking, a degree difference of 1 degree from left to right on either camber or caster will likely cause a pull. Those are all rules for the front. Let's take a look at rules for the rear. When it comes to tire wear, toe has the most severe effect on tire wear. Camber has a moderate effect on tire wear, and caster really, there's no rear caster. When it comes to a pull, and it's caused by the rear, we call that a push. If the tires are pointed in such a way it's causing the rear to swing to the left, we would call that a push to the right. So if the toe is non-matching in the rear, it can cause a push. As far as camber and caster, neither of those cause pulling issues or pushing issues when it comes to the rear. The same toe-in setting rule applies to the rear that applied to the front. If it's off more than 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 degree, it's cause for concern. You want to take a look at that and see what type of symptoms it's causing. And as we mentioned, a toe-in difference from to side may cause a push. That's it for basic alignment settings, or I'm sorry, basic alignment angles. Be sure and check out my second video, basic alignment settings and symptoms. Thanks very much. I hope this was helpful. Be sure and click that like button if you like.